Good morning, Chairman Cox and Supervisors. I'm Mark Slovic with Planning and Development Services, and I will be presenting on item number 3, the recommended denial of the Lilac Hills Ranch project. The Lilac Hills Ranch project is located in the unincorporated area of northern San Diego County, approximately 10 miles north of Escondido and approximately a half mile east of the Interstate 15 corridor and Old Highway 395. The project is approximately 608 acres and is located in the westernmost portion of the Valley Center Community Plan area and easternmost portion of the Bonsall Community Plan area as shown here. Although the Board of Supervisors is not considering approval of the project, the following is an overview of the project proposal. The Lilac Hills Ranch project proposes 1,746 residences, 90,000 square feet of commercial, including office and retail space, a 50-room country inn, a 200-bed group care facility, 104 acres of biological open space, and civic facilities that include a senior center, approximately 25 acres of public and private parks, 16 miles of trails and pathways, a private recreational facility, a new fire station or a remodel of an existing fire station, and a K-8 school site. The project would be implemented in 5 phases over approximately 10 years. The Lilac Hills Ranch project was first submitted to Planning and Development Services in 2012. The project was presented to the Planning Commission at 2 separate hearings on August 7th and September 11th of 2015, and a field trip to the project site was also conducted on August 12th, 2015, between the 2 hearings. At the September 11th, 2015 hearing, the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the project with specific conditions. Conditions including improving West Lilac Road to county public road standards, constructing a turnkey school, identifying specific timing for facility and infrastructure improvements, and resolving issues related to private road easement rights and overburdening, which occurs when the traffic added to an existing road easement exceeds the amount of traffic the existing road was intended for when it was created. In 2016, a modified version of the project, which did not include the staff and Planning Commission recommendations, was placed on the 2016 countywide ballot as a voter initiative by the then applicant Accretive Investments Incorporated. The initiative was not approved by the voters. In June 2017, the current applicant, Village Communities LLC, modified the project to incorporate the recommendations made by staff and the Planning Commission and resubmitted the project. The revised project included updated traffic information and a new greenhouse gas analysis to mitigate significant impacts from GHG emissions, which was recirculated for a 45-day public review from February 22, 2018 to April 9, 2018. In June 2018, the Planning Commission considered the changes made after September 11, 2015, and determined the changes were not substantial and therefore did not require a new Planning Commission recommendation. At the time the Planning Commission recommended approval in 2015, the Deer Springs Fire Protection District had fire authority jurisdiction over the project. Deer Springs Fire Protection District accepted the fire protection plan for the project and confirmed it could provide fire service. Although the County Fire Authority did not have jurisdiction at the time, it also reviewed the project and provided comments regarding fire safety while recognizing the Deer Springs Fire Protection District had jurisdiction over the project. 2 significant changes have occurred since the Planning Commission hearing in 2015. First, in late 2016, the County Fire Authority began providing fire prevention services on Deer Springs Fire Protection District's behalf pursuant to an agreement. The County Fire Authority subsequently reviewed the project and identified several fire safety concerns. Second, California experienced the deadliest and most destructive wildfires in the state's history. The wildfires in 2016, 2017, and 2018 led to an increased focus on fuel modification along roads, additional fire safety regulations, and analysis of evacuation planning across the state. The project is located within high and very high fire hazard severity zones, and the surrounding areas have historically experienced large wildfires. Fuel concentrations and corridors in the immediately adjacent and nearby areas, if combined with certain weather conditions, could result in significant fire development. The county identified fire safety concerns, most critically that the project presents a risk of entrapment along West Lilac Road during a wildfire evacuation. The project has 2 primary evacuation routes. West Lilac Road at the north end of the site, and Circle R Drive to the south. West Lilac Road is an existing two-lane road that provides access to Old Highway 395 to the west. Approximately 81 existing residences along West Lilac Road are expected to use the road during an evacuation, and up to an additional 1,000 homes from the Valley Center area may also use West Lilac Road during an evacuation if Circle R Drive is not available. The proposed project would add 1,746 residences to the area, as well as a 200-bed group care facility and 50-room country inn, with an estimated population of approximately 5,000 additional people needing to evacuate in the event of a wildfire. The applicant estimates approximately half of the project residents would use West Lilac Road during an evacuation. The county disagrees and believes the number of residents evacuating from the project will likely be higher, but would depend on the location of the fire. West Lilac Road currently contains vegetation along both sides of the road, as shown in this slide. While this vegetation has the potential to be compromised by fire at various locations, the risk of vehicle entrapment is currently low due to the relatively few existing homes in the area. That risk increases significantly with the addition of project traffic to West Lilac Road. If traffic is slowed or stopped on West Lilac Road and the road is compromised by fire, there is a heightened risk of vehicle entrapment and impeded evacuation efforts. To address the risk of entrapment, staff concluded a 20-foot wide fuel modification zone was needed along both sides of West Lilac Road. 20 feet is now the standard for fuel modification and has been applied in the county to all large development projects since the recent large wildfires in California. The fuel modification zone would slow the rate of wildfire spread, allowing for an orderly evacuation for current area and future project residents. In order to establish and annually maintain the fuel modification zone, the county determined the applicant needed to secure easements from private property owners. The applicant worked to resolve many of the county's other fire safety concerns, but failed to obtain a single easement right along West Lilac Road. Instead, the applicant secured letters from 9 property owners agreeing to fuel modification. The county determined these letters are insufficient because they are not legally binding and do not grant the county a permanent right to conduct fuel modification. The county does not support the applicant's proposal to conduct fuel modification through voluntary or ordered abatements by the Deer Springs Fire Protection District because it puts the community at risk of entrapment based on an assumption that clearing will occur. Only with easements can the county ensure the fuel modification zone will be maintained to mitigate the entrapment risk. Given this risk, staff has determined the project is unsafe. The applicant submitted several evacuation studies in 2019 and 2020 to support their claim that the project will not negatively impact evacuation. County staff disputes assumptions relied upon in the studies submitted by the applicant. For example, the studies assume the addition of a two-way left turn lane and road improvements on West Lilac Road will more than double the road's capacity. The county agrees these improvements may increase capacity, but disputes they will double capacity because, among other reasons, the improvements will not extend the entirety of West Lilac Road to Covey Lane. Also, 2 lanes of traffic would not be able to flow through a single-lane roundabout by crossing into the center island. The studies also assume intersections in the area would be managed by law enforcement to facilitate traffic flow. In making this assumption, the studies fail to account for additional time needed for dispatch, evacuation declarations, and placement of law enforcement at intersections. In addition, the studies assume all evacuation routes will be open and available to evacuating traffic. The county disputes this assumption because it is likely the fire causing the evacuation will prevent the use of at least one of the evacuation routes. Since 2019, the county held over 15 meetings with the applicant to discuss the fire safety concerns. The county provided the applicant options they could analyze for the county to review and consider based on the results of the analysis. The county offered the applicant the option to study providing a fuel break to the east of West Lilac Road as an alternative to easements along West Lilac Road. The applicant chose to pursue easements on West Lilac Road instead of studying a fuel break. Another option was to evaluate Nelson Way as a potential additional evacuation route to the west. The applicant expressed interest in exploring this option and subsequently provided additional information to the county. the applicant's evacuation studies assume that 30% of evacuation traffic will use Nelson Way during an emergency. However, after the county evaluated the road, it determined Nelson Way could relieve some of the demand on West Lilac Road, but could not replace West Lilac Road as an evacuation route. Nelson Way is too steep, narrow, and windy to handle the number of cars from the project expected to use West Lilac Road. In addition, Nelson Way will be a private gated road and only open during an emergency because the applicant does not have rights to allow project residents to use the road on a daily basis. Because Nelson Way would only be open during an emergency, it is unlikely that evacuating residents will use Nelson Way. Gated roads often cause confusion during an emergency, with many folks unaware of the potential evacuation route. Therefore, county staff disagrees with the assumption that 30% of the evacuation traffic will use Nelson Way during an emergency, which will result in more evacuation traffic using West Lilac Road, leading to a higher risk of vehicle entrapment. The county requires 20 feet of fuel modification along evacuation routes. The fuel modification requirement is not a new or unique policy applied just to this project. Previous projects have been able to provide 20 feet of fuel modification along the primary evacuation routes without the need for easements. The reason these projects did not require separate fuel modification easements is because the fuel modification could be accomplished within the existing county right-of-way or was provided within the project boundaries, which was able to accommodate the road improvements and fuel modification. The Lilac Hills Ranch project requires easements because the county has limited right-of-way along West Lilac Road, and in many cases, the right-of-way stops at the edge of the road. The project is located within the Deer Springs Fire Protection District, making them the fire authority having jurisdiction. The county provides fire prevention services on behalf of the district through an agreement that can be terminated by the district with a 90-day notice. If the agreement is terminated, the county will have no legal authority to require fire clearing along West Lilac Road. Regardless of whether the county or Deer Springs Fire Protection District has jurisdiction, relying on voluntary or ordered abatements is an inadequate way to establish and maintain a fuel modification zone. There is no guarantee the abatement process would result in the necessary clearing along West Lilac Road, presenting too great a risk to the community for staff to support. Based on the number of private properties and the need for annual clearing over the life of the project, it is likely that some of the property owners would appeal the ordered abatements. If the county were to perform the property abatements every year, it could require additional staff positions in county fire authority and/or county council to carry out the property abatements and administrative appeals for the approximately 50 properties on a yearly basis. The cost to carry out and perform the clearing, not accounting for the additional staff positions, would be paid by future residents of the project through a homeowners association and would be approximately $10,000 annually. On May 15, 2020, the Planning Commission requested Planning and Development Services to add an item to the June 12, 2020 agenda to consider the formation of an ad hoc subcommittee for the project and to receive an update from county staff on the fire safety determination. On June 12, 2020, the Planning Commission conducted a notice public hearing and decided not to form an ad hoc subcommittee for the project. At the meeting, the Planning Commission voted 5-2 to recommend that the Board of Supervisors not deny the project due to fire safety concerns. The Planning Commission voted to recommend that the necessary fuel modification along West Lilac Road be conducted by the county or Deer Springs Fire Protection District without requiring easements, and recommended that a condition be added to the project to fund the fuel modification along West Lilac Road in perpetuity. The county has determined that project traffic during a wildfire evacuation will impact the existing community by causing delays and traffic congestion on West Lilac Road, putting the community at risk of vehicle entrapment. Without the legal assurance of fuel modification easements along West Lilac Road, the fire risk to the existing community and future project residents remains unaddressed. Staff does not agree with the Planning Commission recommendation to require fuel modification to be performed by the County Fire Authority or Deer Springs Fire Protection District through forced property owner abatements, which could put the community at risk with no guarantee that clearing will actually occur. Staff has therefore determined the project is unsafe and recommends that the Board of Supervisors deny the project and 1. Find that denial of the project is not subject to environmental review under Section 21080B5 and 15270 of the California Environmental Quality Act because CEQA does not apply to projects that a public agency disapproves. And 2. Deny the Lilac Hills Ranch General Plan Amendment, zoning reclassification, specific plan, master tentative map, implementing tentative map, major use permit, and site plan based on the fire safety concerns. The Board of Supervisors has 3 options. First, the board can deny the project and no further processing would be required, and no further cost would be incurred by the applicant as the project would not move forward. There would also be no restriction or limitation on any future general plan amendment applications requested on the property, even an application for the same project. However, any future permit applications requested on the property would need to restart the permit process, including the preparation of a new environmental document. Second, if the board does not support the staff recommendation, it can refer the project back to staff for further analysis and allow the applicant additional time to try and resolve the fire-related issues, including making changes to the project, like changing the project design or reducing the number of units. Ultimately, it is the applicant's decision and responsibility to propose changes to the project and not the county's. Third, the board could also direct staff to prepare the necessary documents to approve the project and bring it back to the board for consideration. Under option 2, where the board refers the project back to staff, the staff recommendation to deny the project may or may not change. If the applicant were to substantially modify the project, for example, by reducing the number of proposed homes to more closely match the 110 homes allowed under the general plan, decreasing the number of residents that would need to be evacuated, the recommendation could change. However, if the applicant does not substantially change the project and continues to process the project with the same number of proposed homes and the same fire safety measures that have already been considered and evaluated by the county, the recommendation would not change. Under option 3, where the board directs staff to prepare the necessary documents to approve the project, the staff recommendation to deny the project would not change. Under options 2 and 3, where the board refers the project back to staff, the EIR would need to be recirculated to give the public an opportunity to review and comment on the fire-related changes. A recirculation of the EIR would take approximately 1.5 to 2 years to process and return to the board with the cost to the applicant ranging from $150,000 to $250,000, depending on the number and complexity of comments received during the recirculation public review period. This concludes staff's presentation. We will now have Planning Commissioners Brian Woods and Chairman Douglas Barnhart provide a summary of the Planning Commission's recommendations from June 12, 2020.
Good morning, Supervisors. I am Planning Commission Chairman Douglas Barnhart. The Planning Commission has discussed the Lilac Hills Ranch project at a total of 5 meetings, 3 in 2015, including a site visit, and at meetings in 2018 and a recent meeting earlier this month. The Commission is well versed in the project and the surrounding community concerns. On June the 12th, 2020, the Planning Commission conducted a noticed public hearing and voted to recommend that the Board of Supervisors not deny the project due to fire safety concerns. The June 12th, 2020 public hearing was noticed when the Commission learned that county staff had forwarded a project denial recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The Commission was not advised of the recommendation and desired to understand in detail its basis. In the June 12, 2020 hearing, the Commission heard from county fire officials as well as highly qualified fire safety experts representing the applicant. Obviously, the experts have reached different conclusions. Central to the difference is a county staff mandated condition that requires the applicant to obtain easements from property owners whose property is adjacent to West Lilac Road. The requirement of the easements was, in the opinion of the Commission, a bridge too far. The Planning Commission did not feel it appropriate to require off-site easements for fuel modification and was concerned that the condition set a precedent that would provide adjacent property owners on future projects veto authority on future development regardless of merit. Owners of property in San Diego County yearly receive fuel abatement notices from fire agencies. These notices advise that fuel abatement may be accomplished by the fire agency in the event of noncompliance with a resulting charge to the property owner. The easement condition may establish a legal requirement for the county to perform fuel abatement on private property with the resulting liability. The Planning Commission did vote to add a condition of approval that requires the applicant through the Development HOA to fund fuel modification along West Lilac Road in perpetuity. Planning Commissioner Brian Woods, who chaired the 2015 Planning Commission meeting, will provide additional comments for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Supervisor. The Planning Commission determined that it should not be the applicant's responsibility to provide fuel modification along West Lilac Road, and that clearing should be done through an abatement process currently available at the Deer Springs Fire Protection District. The applicant worked with the county to address the fire concerns and added approximately 12 new features to the project over and above the features that were included in our 2015 decision project and its fire mitigation, and significantly improves the fire safety as a result of these additions. These include providing intermittent turn lanes along West Lilac Road and Circle R Drive, increasing fuel modification within the project, adding another evacuation route via Nelson Way, therefore creating 3 major evacuation routes, and providing a one-time $2 million contribution and ongoing HOA assessment to the Deer Springs Fire Protection District for fire clearing and requiring the development of a fire safety council for the project. The Commission agreed with the applicant that a condition should be added to the project to address the off-site clearing rather than requiring fuel modification easement from the off-site property owner. As a result, the Commission noted that the project has the most comprehensive fire mitigation measures we have ever seen. We feel that County Fire should deem the project acceptable and recommend the project to the board. We voted 5-2 to accept the fire mitigation as extremely adequate and recommend the project to the board. Thank you very much for your time. That concludes my comment.